If you've been Googling the Portugal D7 visa lately, you've probably seen references to Seth, which doesn't exist anymore, income numbers from 2024, and AIMA backlog warnings that are no longer relevant. Most of what is ranking right now is wrong. This video fixes that. Hi, I'm Anna from Start Abroad. We've helped hundreds of people move to Portugal, and we published our original D7 video a couple of years ago. A lot has changed since then. We've got 8 steps fully updated for 2026, so let's get into it. But fair warning before we begin, this visa is complicated. It's bureaucratic. You will be collecting a lot of paperwork yourself, even if you're working with a fantastic lawyer or relocation service. So that's just the reality of the process. Go in knowing that, you'll be fine. All right, let's get to it. First, is the D7 visa actually the right visa for you? The D7 visa, also sometimes called the passive income visa, is for non-EU citizens who want to move to Portugal and can support themselves financially with passive income. So the classic applicants are retirees living on a pension, people with rental income or dividends, anyone with money that is coming in passively. In 2026, the minimum income requirement for a single applicant is €920 per month. And that number is Portugal's minimum wage. It usually goes up every year. It will increase. In US dollars, you're looking at about $1,000, although please estimate conservatively given fluctuating exchange rates. On savings, the standard benchmark is €11,040 that you're going to need to have saved and put into a Portuguese bank account. Again, this is for a single applicant. If you're applying with an adult dependent, add 50%. If you're applying with a child dependent, add 30% for each child. Now, on a budgeting note, if you think you're going to be able to live on €920 per month in Lisbon, you're going to have a really hard time. We'd suggest thinking about this in terms of maybe €2,000 to €2,500 per month to live comfortably, and more if you're in a major city. If you work remotely, the D7 could still be an option in some circumstances, but there is also a digital nomad visa that may be more appropriate for your circumstances. We have a full video on the digital nomad visa that we will link in the description. All right, step 1. Before anything else, before you start looking at appointments online, before you sign a lease, before you start gathering your documents, this is what you've got to do. 1, you've got to get your NIF. That's NIF. It's your Portuguese tax identification number. You can't open a Portuguese bank account without it. You can't sign a lease without it in a lot of cases. You can't apply for a visa without it, certainly. The good news, you can get it remotely and with fiscal representation until you get to Portugal. Then the bank account. So it's not Wise. It's not a international bank with lots of branches all over the world that's not headquartered in Portugal. It needs to be a Portuguese headquartered bank like Caixa Geral de Depósitos or Novo Banco or Millennium BCP. The statements from this account are part of what you're going to use to demonstrate that you financially qualify for this visa to the consulate. So get both of these sorted early. The NIF because you have to have it in place before doing most anything else, and the bank account because it can take time to get that open. All right, step 2. Figuring out where you're going to apply. Now, for almost everyone, you have to submit your D7 application in person. That means showing up to either a consulate or a VFS Global office location. VFS Global is a company that the Portuguese government has hired to handle paperwork related to visa applications. Now, depending on where you live specifically, you might be assigned to either of those locations. You usually do not have a choice in where you attend an appointment. You will have a specific office based on their jurisdiction. Now, appointments. Right now in 2026, getting an appointment in a country like the US or the UK genuinely can be the hardest part of this process. If you are not working with a service like ours that will get the appointment for you, if you're getting it on your own, you most likely will need to be checking the appropriate VFS portal many times per day in order to secure an appointment. If you're assigned to a consulate, this becomes a lot easier typically, but you will still need to look for an appointment far in advance to be sure that you get one within your desired timeline. If you're applying through a VFS office, just know that this will be a project, and please give it at least a few months to be sure that you've budgeted appropriately. All right, step 3. Assembling all of your documents. So you don't know what you don't know, and that definitely applies here. Most people don't get turned away at their appointments because they don't have anything. It's just that oftentimes the documents that they do bring aren't quite correct. Things like background checks that have expired or marriage certificates that don't have an apostille. So we're going to go through the entire list, and it will also be written out in the description for your use. And we're going to go through all of those specific details so you don't get caught unawares. Okay, so for the main applicant, and please bear with me because I'm just going to go through a list of paperwork. It's not thrilling. Application form, the form itself available on your consulate's website. Your passport should be valid for at least 120 days past when your visa is going to expire. Make sure that it's valid for at least a year after you plan on moving. 2 passport photos. These will need to be in the EU size. That is not the same as the United States passport photo size. A notarized color copy of your passport. Next is a personal statement. So this is a short fact-based letter that explains why you want to move to Portugal and how you qualify financially. It should be clear and specific. It's not a creative writing exercise. You should include numbers. Proof of sufficient funds. This means proof of your passive income, pension letter, dividend statements, rental income, like a signed lease. Then your 3 most recent months of bank statements showing you have a place where you're receiving that income or additional savings or investments. And then in some locations, additionally, your most recent tax return. In the United States, this would be just your most recent 1040, not the entire tax return. All right, next is proof of your Portuguese bank account, fully funded, as discussed. Then your NIF document, of course. Then the next thing on the list tends to be one of the trickiest. This is your criminal background certificate. In the US, this would be your FBI background check. In the UK, it's your ACRO background check. And in Canada, it's the RCMP background check. Okay, so there are 2 critical things here. One is this document must be apostilled. An apostille is a certification that proves the document is valid and can be used internationally. And then the second thing is that there is a clear validity window for this document. The validity window is going to depend on where you are applying, but the strictest that we see is 90 days, and that applies across the entire United States right now. So the timing of when you get this document is very important. It cannot have expired by the time you attend your appointment. Equally, it takes time to get this document and get it apostilled. So if you have that 90-day window, it can go really fast. You need to be really thoughtful about your timing. So next up is health insurance. Duration requirements can vary by where you're applying from. You might see that you need to have 4 months or 6 months or 12 months. Travel medical insurance is generally acceptable for this initial stage of the visa application process. And otherwise, the requirements for this health insurance are that it must have at least 30,000 euros worth of coverage with no deductible. It has to cover repatriation to your home country. And then it needs to be in effect by the time you actually plan on moving to Portugal. All right, and next up is one of the trickier things on our list, which is proof of accommodation in Portugal. Now, if you have a purchased home, this would be your deed. If you are renting, you would need a lease agreement, a legal lease agreement signed. Depending on where you're applying from, you may need to show a 12-month lease or longer. This is certainly the case right now in the US, the UK, and Canada. That property also will need to be registered with Finanças, and that is in time for your next appointment with AIMA. I know people look for workarounds here, but AIMA has really been cracking down on this lately, so I recommend just getting the lease. All right, next is if you are applying with accompanying family members, with people who are your dependents, you're going to need to have copies of documents that prove your relationship to those people. So this is things like a marriage certificate or birth certificates if you're bringing kids along with you. And those documents also need to be apostilled. Then proof of planned travel to Portugal, a flight itinerary is often acceptable, your appointment confirmation, and finally, if you are applying via a VFS office location, they usually ask for some kind of proof of address to make sure that you're applying in the correct place. Now, for accompanying family members or for those dependents, you're going to need your own original copies. So the main applicant can have a copy. You need an original copy of that proof of relationship, like the marriage certificate or the birth certificate with that apostille. Depending on where you're applying, you may also need a TOR or a terms of responsibility document. All right, well, that's the list. Everything organized, and it is all written out for you in the description. Up next is step 4, which is the fee. It's pretty straightforward. It's 110 euro per person, and you will pay this at the consulate or at the VFS office. If you are applying via VFS, there's going to be an additional fee of about 40 euro for processing. And then there is probably going to be an additional fee depending on where you're applying from that will be for a return envelope to you. Note that some offices require a money order or a cashier's check, not a credit card. So please check in advance with your office. All right, step 5, the big one. You attend your appointment. A couple of tips about this. First, please arrive early, not on time, 15 minutes early. Also, don't staple anything and have copies that are single-sided instead of printed on both sides. Both of these are because, generally speaking, someone is going to have to scan every single piece of paper that you hand over. Be organized. The idea here is that you are going to present all of your paperwork. You want to be organized enough that you know exactly where any particular document is. So when you are asked for an apostilled background check, you can simply say, oh yes, here it is. Now, the environment when you walk in does depend on where you're applying. But generally speaking, if you're applying in a VFS office, you can think of this as like going to the DMV. You're going to be in a waiting area with a lot of chairs. When it's your turn, you'll be called up to a desk and you'll sit there with a representative and they will ask you for all of your paperwork, which you have so well organized, and you'll hand it over to them. Importantly, if you are attending in a VFS office, the people that you interact with have no bearing on whether or not you are approved. And whether you're at a consulate or at a VFS office, this is not an interview. This is a paperwork exercise. You don't need to wear a suit. You don't need to be prepared for an interrogation. On a more practical note, depending on where you are applying, you may need to surrender your passport and then wait. The Portuguese consulate will hold it until you are approved and have the visa put inside and sent back to you. Which leads me to step 6, waiting. This is honestly probably the hardest part of the whole process for most people. Timelines vary, and I mean genuinely vary. This month, we're seeing some timelines out of Miami that are only 2 to 3 weeks, but in some of the tougher locations and other offices, approval timelines can run 4 months or longer during the slow times. There's no universal answer here. Your consulate's location and current workload both matter. You can follow up with the consulate if you have questions, but there's usually very little that you can do to get things moving faster. Portugal legally has 60 days to review your application. So if you are going to follow up, I recommend waiting at least that long. Step 7, get yourself to Portugal. Get on a plane. Once approved, you'll get your D7 visa, which will be good for 120 days. You need to enter Portugal within that window of time. That visa is a dual entry visa, so that covers your initial entry, and then you have one more exit and re-entry allowed before you attend your AIMA appointment. Which also brings me to step 8, which is that AIMA appointment. So this is the second appointment. This is the appointment in Portugal after you have moved. This is also the step that has changed the most since our last video. When we made the original D7 guide, this step was called your CEF appointment. And CEF does not exist anymore. CEF is now AIMA, the Agency for Integration, Migration, and Asylum. Same functions, new agency. A quick note if you're researching online, not very long ago, there was a lot online about major AIMA backlogs, hundreds of thousands of pending applications, months-long waits, the whole picture. That was real and is still affecting some people. AIMA had a really difficult first couple of years, but for new applicants, the backlog has generally cleared up. People are now able to get appointments within reasonable timeframes. So you'll see on your visa 120 days. Typically within that period or not too long after the expiration date, you'll attend your AIMA appointment. Many applicants receive a pre-scheduled AIMA appointment when their visa is issued. There's a URL address actually printed on the visa itself you can use to look up this information. If your visa doesn't come with an appointment, that's fine. You can just request one with AIMA's online system. And here's where we get to our second long list. This is everything that you need to bring to your AIMA appointment. And note that this is a very different list from that first appointment list. So let's go through it. 1, your passport containing your visa, then proof of entry to Portugal, either the stamp in your passport or a boarding pass, then 3 most recent months of statements from your Portuguese bank account. We also want to show at this time that you've maintained a healthy balance in that account, at least several thousand euro. Then proof of accommodation, so this might be your lease agreement, your deed, etc. If you are renting, then you're going to have to include a couple of additional documents. This is a recent change. So your 3 most recent rent receipts from Finanças, you can ask your landlord or get it from your Finanças portal. Plus, you need the Modelo 2 form. This is proving that your lease was properly registered with the tax authorities. If you're an owner of a property, you're going to need to include a recent utility bill. Then also a declaration of accommodation. This is a letter that you write just attesting to where you've been living in Portugal. We're not done with accommodation documents yet either, because the next item on the list is the Caderneta Predial. This is the property tax document, whether you rent or you have bought a property. You'll then need to bring your NIF. You'll also need updated copies of all of your financial documents that show that you qualify for the visa. So whatever you brought the first time around, bring them again, but refreshed for the most recent 3 months. Then Portuguese private health insurance. This is a change from the first list. Not travel medical, you need proper health insurance with full coverage in Portugal. You'll need to include a release for a Portuguese background check, and then you'll also need your appointment confirmation. Now, for accompanying family members, add a terms of responsibility form, proof of relationship to the main applicant. This can just be a simple copy of what you submitted previously. And finally, for school-aged children, proof of school enrollment if relevant. Okay, very important. Since last year in April 2025, AIMA has a very strict complete application rule. So if you are missing something when you attend your AIMA appointment, you will be sent away and forced to reschedule that appointment. There's no grace period anymore. So please come with everything. At the appointment, you'll be fingerprinted, you'll have your photograph taken, and then your residency card will be issued and sent in the mail to you. And that's it. You're a Portuguese resident. Okay, so what comes next after this? Your initial residency permit is good for 2 years. Then you can renew it for an additional 3 years. After 5 years of legal residency, you can apply for permanent residency. Then after 10 years, you can apply for citizenship. Portugal did just pass changes to its nationality law, which has changed this from 5 years to 10 years for applying for citizenship. All right, and that's the D7 in 2026. Every step, every document updated. If you want help with the actual process and not just information, that's what Start Abroad does. From your NIF on day one to accompanying you to the AIMA appointment at the finish line. Most relocation help drops off after the visa. We don't. Sign up for a free consultation at startabroad.com. Questions in the comments. We read everyone.